Susan Rose, and welcome to All About Artists. And my guest today is Mary Ann Yarmosky, a very talented artist, and also resides in South Orleans on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's so nice to finally meet you in person.
Yes, same here. I've been waiting for this moment.
And me too. I'm excited.
I'm excited too because I haven't seen your work on Facebook, but up in person, it's absolutely magnificent.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely magnificent. She also, Marianne, also works as an associate broker for Compass Pine Acres Realty Incorporated. I want to thank Dave Fabiano, Joanna Herbert, and Nicole Brown. Without them, there would be no show, and thank you so much. Have you always been interested in art? What is your background, Marianne?
Yeah, I think I've always been interested in art, and I grew up in a family that, we had a piano, first of all, that my mother, it was like her prized possession, although she didn't play. And as a young kid, around 3 years old, I started playing by ear. And of course, she thought I was going to be some kind of virtuoso. So she sent me to take piano lessons at an early age. Never happened. But I did find a lot of peace my entire life in just sitting and playing. When you're upset or anxious, just to sit down at that instrument.
Kind of a meditative thought type of thing, just like artwork. I'm not a musician, but I would assume that that's what would give you that inner peace. It takes you away from life and what's going on.
Absolutely. And later, I studied fashion design. My father had this idea that I would go to an all-Catholic girls' school someplace, took me around to like College of New Rochelle and these different places, and finally succumbed and let me go to study fashion design on Newbury Street in Boston. He felt Boston was a little more tame than New York. But it was a fabulous education because we studied a lot of art history, designed clothes, you have to illustrate, so you're using a lot of watercolors and so forth. And I had the Museum of Fine Arts. I lived on the Fenway. So that was right there, and the Gardner Museum around the corner. So I was able to just saturate myself, in art in every direction. So it was great.
Marianne, how much training and education did you receive in your painting?
Well, not a whole lot, actually, in my painting, Susan, other than fashion design. Because one of the things about fashion design, and I think people don't always realize this, it's almost like being an architect. You can imagine, what you would like to see in a garment. But unless it works, unless you can put it on and sit and zip it and, whatever, and unless it moves with your body, it doesn't work. Then you have to draft a pattern or draft and grade it or drape it.
Gosh.
And then you have to illustrate it, so that somebody else knows what is it that you're trying to create here. And so you have to be able to draw a human figure and then put the clothes on it. So that's about the training I had, other than studying art history and so forth.
Clothing is art.
It
you
is.
have a lot of times people don't realize it.
Yeah.
And it's an art in itself.
Yeah. I would wake up in the middle of the night sometimes with an idea, and I'd have to get up and sketch it. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. then I designed costumes for the Boston Opera Company for a while, and then worked for a designer in Newport, Rhode Island. And we did clothes for what they call the Newport 500, you know, the wealthier women in Newport who wore fabulous clothes. So it was good.
What theme do you pursue and why?
In what I paint, definitely women, as you can see, and I think there's a reason for that.
I was just going to ask you
my
that.
gosh.
Why do you paint women?
Oh gosh, you know, I just think women. Nothing against men. I like them too.
Yeah.
But I think women are fascinating, and just from my own life experience and what I've seen from other women, we go through a lot.
Yes.
And you have to be resilient. And I always marvel at the resiliency of women and the emotion that they're willing to share. And so I guess when I paint, I usually start with just a blank canvas. I don't know who is going to appear there, but it just starts to take form. And then sometimes, and I do include a lot of musical instruments in my art, probably because of my love of music. Oh, yeah. But also I'll think, maybe she needs a bird on her head, you know? I don't know why. Maybe she needs a cat next to her, you know, or a feather coming out of her hat. So it's something that kind of just grows on the canvas. But you'll notice, I think, the eyes,
It's always the eyes that really gets me. Your eyes on your women. And I like the one where she's just winking.
Oh, yes. I almost brought that.
Yeah. The one where she winks. I thought that was cute too.
Yeah. But I think the eyes they're looking at you and they're saying something.
Yes.
Which is true. If I look in your eyes, you're saying something to me.
Right.
And I think too often we don't stop and really look at people. You hear a lot more from people by just observing, I think, sometimes than talking. And that's where my ladies come from.
Where did you find inspiration?
Well, again, I would say it's in the people who I meet. I, at one point, directed the Welfare to Work initiative for Berkshire County. And yes, it was one of my favorite jobs that I ever had. And I met the most amazing women during that period of time who were struggling through no fault of their own and trying to, get their lives together. And we were able to provide them with transportation, education, training, all kinds of services, some childcare, which was desperately needed. And I think that's when I really started to look at women, especially, in a more in-depth way, because you heard their stories and their struggles. And I would watch them sometimes in blizzards push a stroller through the snow.
I've seen that.
To bring their child to daycare and then have to go to work or almost lose a job because they didn't have transportation back and forth. And as I got to know them on a deeper and deeper level, I just became really, I guess, more and more interested in what makes us all tick, what makes women tick, and how do they overcome the things they overcome.
I think that's why I think all of this experience you've had with women, I think also it comes from within onto the paper.
Yeah.
From the emotions that you feel, come onto the paper. That's what happens to me when I do my work. And I think we have that same quality as far as putting, something together with, I just put a line to and stop, and then all of a sudden I see something.
Exactly.
It's fascinating.
It really is.
Yeah, because a lot of people have to see something a lot of times in order to do something.
Right. Stand looking at scenery or looking at a photograph or something. And I don't know. Sometimes I say, maybe I'm a little crazy. Where are these people coming from?
Oh, I think it's wonderful.
Well, it's. I think one of the things that attracted to me to you was seeing some of what you do too, and feeling that kinship, I guess you would say. Yeah, thinking the same way.
Describe a real life situation that inspired you. A real life.
Boy, there's so many. Well, I could mention a recent one too. I have a little dog. It's a poor excuse for a dog. She's a little Bichon cockapoo mix. But I walk her at a place called Thompson Field. It's like a 52-acre area. And I often have seen this woman there. I still don't know her name, but I know her dog's name is Wilma. And so I would always talk to Wilma. And this woman seemed very kind of slow talking, slow walking, maybe not very interesting. And last week I walked along with her, and she told me her story. And she works at Stop and Shop, sometimes bagging, sometimes as a cashier. Her husband has cancer.
Oh my goodness.
Bone cancer, never leaves his room. So she works, she goes home, she takes care of him. Yeah, feeds him 3 meals. And I thought again, my gosh, you never know.
No, you don't know somebody else's story.
And so there's another character, somebody who will appear again.
That is definitely will appear on the canvas.
Yes, her emotion will appear. Yeah.
What is your artistic outlook on life?
Oh, wow. I see art every place. You know, whether it's looking at another human being, walking next to the ocean. I planted wildflowers in the field behind our house this year so that the birds and the butterflies had a place to, you know, congregate and eat. And I mean, it's art. You know, you watch the way the grasses sway in the breeze, or the waves just sort of lap, you know, the sand. I just see art every place, in the sky, you know, at night. And I think it's a wonderful way to live, because if we stop long enough, just for a minute, you know, to live consciously and to see what's around us, art is everywhere. And I think especially today, we need that, because the world is crazy.
It is.
There's so much going on.
Yes, and I see out of my window every day. I see the sun set over the mountain, and just when it's just setting and you can see everything, it's just like, you know, God's country.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, yeah.
What motivates you to create?
Well, you and I spoke briefly before this, and I think we both said that we can't help it.
No.
You have to create. I can't not be creating something, whether it's a piece of clothing, and I still do some of that, you know. Sewing, I do a lot of sewing. I put my art on clothing, which is lots and lots of fun. Denim jackets, or I'll paint the back of it. I someday should show you some. And I've done them on lampshades, some of my art on lampshades.
That's interesting.
Trays, serving trays. And I've done yoga mats, which are really, really fun too. You know, one of my ladies is on a yoga mat, you know.
Well, now that you have so much experience with clothing, I can see how now you can actually put your art into something you've already experienced, so drastically experienced.
Yes, the design. Yeah. And that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
How does that work?
The jackets in particular, I've done both. I've painted on the jacket, and then I add fabric, you know, to give it a little bit more of a flare or trim, something like that. And I get them at Goodwill or wherever, you know, older denim jackets. Or sometimes I'll take a piece of fabric, you know, usually white, and actually paint whatever it is I want to paint on that fabric, and then sew it, usually to the back of the jacket, you know, where the panel is.
You sew it on the back.
Yeah, and then make a frame out of trim. So I've got them all over the place. You know, people wear them all over the place. So that I sold a bunch of them. It's fun. Yeah. Yeah, really a lot of fun.
Wow.
So.
Excuse me. How has the form of art you pursue changed over time?
Yeah, well, I guess we've been sort of talking about that. It was through fashion and designing clothing, and which I still do some of, but then transferring that whole imagination to canvas. And I've tried sculpting, as we spoke about earlier. I loved that, but you need all the right tools, and you need, although you've given me a clue about something else.
Sculpey.
Sculpey, yes, I'm going to definitely be trying that.
Because with clay, you have to have it fired up, or it's going to break if it drops.
Yes, yeah.
You know, so then you have to go and do that process also. But with the Sculpey, all you do is bake it.
Yeah.
I think it's on 125 for 15 or 20 minutes, and it's like a real a hard plastic, you know, that's almost unbreakable.
Well, I'm going to look that up, and I'm going to play with that as well.
And it's so smooth and more pliable with your hand, you'll see.
That sounds great. Another thing I've used is that resin, epoxy resin, that you mix it and you can pour it over a canvas or whatever you're working on. So I've done both canvases, trays, things like that, where I paint whatever I'm painting, but then add little things to it, and it might be seashells or whatever, and then pour the resin over it. One that I did is a painting of a woman she looks like she's drowning or floating. And I wish I had brought that. There's a window next to her, and she's kind of rising from a bed. And I poured the resin over it, so it really looks like water. It looks like she's surfacing through. And to me, what that said was, we all have dreams sometimes that are not comfortable, or parts of life that you wish you could escape. And that's how I saw her, is like just trying to rise up from that dream and escape, but feeling like she was drowning in sorrow, probably.
In sorrow, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand that one.
Yeah.
Have you experimented with blending mediums in order to become more expressive that one medium will allow?
Yeah, I think that resin, the epoxy resin, is one example of that. And lately I've been trying, especially to get more skin tone and more depth to a face, I've been trying to do things that are somewhat a little more realistic, and I may have used it on her. You can see I used pastels to shadow. And I like that because you can, and I think this lady too, you can blend it in so you get more of a shadow than you might be able to with just paint. But there's so many more things I want to try.
Oh, yes. The other lady I had on here, she goes, I want to try this, I want to try that, I want to try everything.
It's so much fun, isn't it?
Because it's fun, it's creative, and it I don't know, it gives you a feeling of some kind of accomplishment, too, I think. And a happiness when you're finished with something that you really, really thought, wow, this is the one.
Yeah, yeah.
And what about your first one?
The first one, oh, I did one. I worked also, I worked in the healthcare industry for a while too. And at one point I worked for, it was called the Conti Institute for Environmental Health, and planned scientific meetings around Eastern and Central Europe. And the doctor who I worked for has bought maybe six, he recently passed away, which is sad, but he bought 6 of my paintings. And one of the first ones that I did was not, no people were, or there weren't any faces involved, but I did buildings like in New York, but multicolored buildings. And on each one, I had like on one, there was a chef standing, another had a taxi cab on top of it, and it was actually one of my favorite paintings, but different characters on top of every building, just to depict the city. You know, this is New York. But and he fell in love with it. He said, "I must have that painting." So that, and then I think I did more that kind of thing. I think I was almost afraid to see if I could put a face on canvas. Which is probably why most of mine are abstract. You know, they're not.
I love the one that's in back of you.
Yeah.
This one really caught my eye.
Yeah.
'Cause I haven't seen that on Facebook or anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did. When was your last show? Now that was
The one.
the one at the coffee shop.
Oh, that's right, Dottie's.
Dottie's
Yes,
in
yeah.
Pittsfield.
Yeah, I actually sold a couple paintings there, and Jessica said that's the first time they've sold any from their exhibit. But Richard Bertel had contacted me and asked me if I would, lend some paintings. So that was fun, to be in Dottie's. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice little shop there.
It is. It is.
Matter of fact, years ago, I think I had some paintings up there.
I bet you did.
Well, that was a long time ago, but I remember Dottie's. Yes, I did.
Yeah, it's a nice atmosphere. Yeah. So, and I've done a couple. I have a few in a couple galleries, in one in Orleans and one in Chatham. One is a Galley West Art Gallery, and the other is Chatham. I forget exactly what it's called, but I have 2 there. And then I did an exhibit in Housatonic last fall, which was really lots of fun too, and some fabulous artists were in that. So been in a few, so that's fun. I like doing it.
What are the most prominent themes you recognize in your art, and how did that come to be?
Well, a lot of them, and I only brought one with an instrument, but I often incorporate music or an instrument into the art. And I think, again, that's my love of music. And probably the peace I found, too, with just sitting and playing the piano. So I guess, I don't know if that answers the question, but
No, it does answer the question. Have you ever considered putting your artwork in a book? You have a lot.
Well, I've thought about that. In fact, Harriet Candy, the person who publishes The Artful Mind, told me that I should do that. She said, "You need to do a book." Well, we'll see. We'll see, if I get around to that.
Yeah, we were talking about that because I'm making a book with my characters, and I asked you, I said, do you think I should put a frame around them instead of just having them on the page?
Definitely.
And when you told me definitely, I said, okay.
Yes,
that's it.
I can just see it. I can just visualize that. And one of the funny things, and it reminded me when you were talking about your art too, is that oftentimes, and it's mostly women, but some men too, when I put a piece on Facebook, they will write a story about that woman, which is fascinating to me because some of the stories are, they're fabulous. I mean, the imagination that goes into them. One recent one was somebody decided that she was French, and that she had been jilted by her lover, and she was looking for a place to stay for just one night, and she'd be gone in the morning.
That's
and I
what
thought,
they say.
whoa, yeah.
That's what we say about art. You
Yeah.
know, some people see something and some other people see other things in
Yeah.
art. You can have the same piece. And the other thing is, do you ever put a name underneath yours?
I always do.
You
Yeah,
always do.
I always do.
Well, one time, very quickly, I was in a show, and this fellow said he was going to sell a painting. And he thought it was a woman, but she thought it was a man, and she wanted to buy it. Okay, and so she said, well, gee, I don't want it then if it's a woman.
Who's to say what we are?
Because
Yeah, I know.
I wanted a man to protect me, to put it over my bed.
Then it's a man. It's
Yeah, so
absolutely.
sometimes when you title things,
That's true, isn't it?
so sometimes if you title or don't title, you don't know what to do.
Oh, that's so true. And I do think it's much like poetry. Like when I read poetry or when I read poetry, I thought everyone interprets a poem in a different way. And I think everyone does the same thing with a painting. And I love paintings that elicit your imagination. You know, like who's looking out that window and what is it they're seeing? Or, you know, what is she thinking? And I think those are the paintings that draw you in. And so, yeah, it's probably not a great idea to title a painting. I may stop that right now. Whatever you want her to be, that's what she is.
Yeah. It's good to title and it's good not to title. You don't know what to do. So in a book, I'd suggest titling one and not titling another. Let them decide is what I was thinking of doing. You know, let them decide.
Yeah, who is she?
Who is she? What is she? But give them an idea, because a lot of times people don't interpret paintings, you know, and so it gives them a chance.
That's a fabulous idea. Yeah, and I love hearing what other people think.
What do you wish you had learned earlier in your artist journey? And where are you going to go from here?
Maybe not to, well, just not to be concerned what other people think. And I mentioned one gallery in Orleans where everything is fishing boats and beach scenes and so forth. And you'd walk in the door and then you'd see these, something like this. And I felt like, oh, it must be a jolt. Like you walk in and like, whoa, what are those? And I felt a little embarrassed, like I just don't fit in here. And I think it's better not to care, you know, just do your thing and enjoy it and don't care.
And don't care, exactly. Have that carefree attitude. Well, we got 37 seconds
37 seconds. Well, it's not long enough to talk to you.
I really. We'll have to talk some.
Really, next time I'm back in the Berkshires, we're going to have coffee and we're going to talk and talk and talk.
That sounds wonderful.
Yes.
And just want to say one thing more, is that I am so captivated by the painting that's in back of you. I think you should do more of that, slightly more abstract on some of them.
You know,
not all of them. I'm just saying, just.
I love that. Okay, is that it?
I think that's it.
That's it. Okay.
Stand by. Well, goodbye, folks.